Guru Nation, welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru, as well as random musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. This one will be on YouTube and on iTunes and on Stitcher and on any other podcast player you prefer, platform. I've got Darshan Kulkarni. Darshan, how's it going?
It's going great, Dan. How are you doing? It's good to hear from you.
I'm doing good. Yeah, likewise. It's been a while since we did our one of these talks. The last one we did was on Edgar, and I
Yep.
had some of my interns do some of the groundwork on that, and got some
How's that been
CDAs.
going?
Yeah, they got some CDAs. I think one or two CDAs out of it. Haven't done it that
Wow.
it's just when they have time, so it hasn't been a regular thing.
Absolutely.
But I think it's another good biz dev tool uh, to have in your toolkit if you're a CRO site, whatever it is, looking for studies, looking for sponsors, looking for PIs, as you showed us
hmm
so thoroughly in our last talk, which was what, 3 months ago?
That seems about right. Actually, did you hear about the latest thing about how people um, are hiding their intentions and using some of these like sites like clinicaltrials.gov to actually market their sites?
How are they doing that? Wait, what? Uh, Sites are using this?
Yep, sites are using this. So I'll send you a link, but I don't know whether we should keep that for a separate talk or we should do that talk right now.
Just give me the cliff notes, and then we'll expand on that later.
Okay. Cliff Notes version, people are, uh, so let's say the example that was given in the stat article was, I think it was like this week actually, may even have been today. But the article basically came out and said, let's say you wanted to heard about stem cells and you're like, stem cells are the greatest thing. And let's say there's something about osteoarthritis. Most people would go, I want to go to my doctor's office and get stem cells into my knee, but I don't know if my doctor is comfortable or knows anything about it. So let me look on clinical trials. Let me see if there are studies. So apparently people are now smart enough to do that, and they look online for the latest, greatest studies on this. And there are sites who are on those places going, yeah, we do stem cells and we do research in osteoarthritis. And then these people will call up and they'll be like, it's
Hmm.
$14,000 to get the stem cells injected in you. And then then there's a study, and they're like, wait a second, I thought this was a study. Why am I paying anything for this? And they will say, no, the study is in the follow up, not in the actual giving you of the stem cells. So we monitor
Hmm.
you after. So it's a
Interesting.
system that they're using.
So a site can actually put their site info on clinicaltrials.gov. I thought you had to be a sponsor.
Well, so I guess they're basically positioning themselves as investigator-initiated studies.
Wow. Okay, what a good strategy. So
Well,
interesting.
I mean, the question is, are they actually doing a study or are they not? I mean, I didn't look specifically into the details of this, but if
Yeah.
there is, I mean, I'm all for using guerrilla marketing, but I think that there's a line that you need to be careful of, which is you need to make sure that you're actually giving subjects, because these people are vulnerable. They're coming to you for help. And if you're
Yeah, you
just
don't want to
doing this,
use
exactly,
deceptive marketing. Uh,
exactly.
wow. That sounds good. I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but it sounds like it could
Yep.
easily be misused.
Exactly, exactly. I think it's one of those things where you need to be careful about how you do it.
Right.
If done right, I think there are people who could benefit from it. And
Wow.
I was just reading about bioethics in a bioethics book about how people are using or doing investigative studies and finding out new things. Like I'm sure you've heard of the Let's Go One Day book where he's talking about checklists. And with checklists, that came from an investigative study. And I understand from that book, reading that OHRP was not happy about it because they're like, we need a lot more investigation and we need a lot more oversight and blah, 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 blah. These guys were like, dude, this has solved a lot of problems. We've gone out and because of the efforts we put in, we found out that patients can benefit from these checklists. So
Hmm.
there's a balance, and people have to make sure that you're meeting both criteria, you're helping put information out there. You're doing investigation studies, but at the same time, you're not using this as a way of sort of bringing people in and not actually helping them.
Mhm.
So that's going to be
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah, we gotta do another podcast on that. So, well, Darshan, we didn't even introduce you, man. We're like 5 minutes into this. People may not know, we always getting, new subscribers lately. Like, I don't know if you've
Good
seen
for
my
you.
blog recently. Have you gone to the clinicaltrialsguru.com?
I have, but I haven't gone to it recently. I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, yeah, it's different. So it's more like a portal now rather than my blog being on the homepage. I have
Okay.
an opt-in, a very aggressive opt-in on top of the fold. So that's when you go to a
Yep.
website, the
Yep.
top of the fold is what you can see before you start scrolling, right? So that entire area is put your email in there. So I've been getting like 6, 7 email addresses a day now, as opposed to like 2 or 3.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you scroll down and you can go see my biz dev stuff, CRA Academy, my blog, the podcast. There's different. It's more like a portal, and we've gotten a little more aggressive. So because of
Yeah.
that, we've gotten more subscribers, and a lot of them are going to be hearing you for the first time today.
Well, hello people who are in Dan's world. I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy to help.
Yep, Darshan is pharmacist as well as an
Hmm.
attorney, and
Hmm.
he works in pharma and clinical research space.
I work, yeah, I do a lot of work in pharma and the clinical research space. I help in a couple of other spaces as well, but there's all in the life sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting, and there's some really cool things happening right now, and I think there's going to be some even cooler things that are going to happen soon. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
find out. By the way,
Sure.
did you hear about the recent guidance that came out, I think today, from the FDA about how to do research with IRB waivers?
No. That came out
So
today?
I think that was today.
Ah, we gotta get our writer on the clinical scoop on it.
There you go.
IRB waivers?
Yep.
Okay.
So when there's minimal risk to patients.
I'm taking note of that right now. That's for the clinical scoop. Shameless plug. New guidance, new FDA guidance. So today, what are we talking about? You had a really good idea for a topic.
Yeah.
You want to
So what
introduce
I
it?
was really Yeah, so what I was really excited about was I've been dealing with a lot of people, and they've been like, Darshan, this is great. You told me about the latest and greatest things, but what I'd really like to know a little bit more about are the meat and potatoes. What I'd like to know about is I worked as a employee for a site sponsor, CRO. I'm starting out. I don't know what to even think, what to be thinking about. I don't know what I should be asking for. When have I gone too far? And I definitely help a lot of people with these issues. If you need to know more, just reach out to me at kulkarnilawfirm.com. But what I'm really talking about here is what are some of the initial top 5, top 6 issues that you should be thinking about as a clinical research employee in either site, sponsor, or CRO. So, should we
Okay, so
start?
top
Yep,
5 issues you should be thinking about as an employee of a research site, CRO, or a sponsor, right?
yep, that's right.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
number 1, is the non-compete clause really necessary? So let's take a second to think about that. So most of your typical agreements have a standard non-compete clause in there. And that clause usually says something like, if you work for me, you can't go work anywhere else because you might take my employees, you might take whoever, you might take my clients, and that's not okay. Conceptually, that sounds like a great idea. Put that in there, see what happens. Hopefully, that will dissuade people from leaving you, taking your intellectual property somewhere else. Well, turns out that some states don't allow them. Some states restrict them significantly, and
Hmm.
other states, like I believe, like New York, actually, and I can't remember specifically. I'd have to look into it again, but my recollection of New York was doing this. They actually started going after employers who had overly aggressive non-compete policies, and there have
Yeah.
been some settlements, which is kind of interesting. Like I think there was a situation where there was a subway employee who was who wanted to switch from one subway to go work at another sandwich shop, and the subway owner said you can't do that because you signed a non-compete. And I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly what kind of trade secrets you have in that sandwich. But
That's true. California is also a similar state.
yep,
And
exactly.
I've actually seen this firsthand from a lot of colleagues of mine that go on to work for other sites, or maybe they want to come from other sites to work for my site, and they
Hmm.
say, "Hey, I have a non-compete." And I tell them, look, that's not enforceable in California, because I've been told by numerous attorneys they're not enforceable. They're only enforceable for business partners. They're not enforceable for employees or contractors. Contractors is separate. I don't know. That's a little more complicated. But employees, for sure, they're not enforceable in California, from what I understand.
Well, there's some limits to that. Even California has certain limits. Like obviously that's true for business partners to a certain extent. Again, that there are carve outs there as well. And even in terms of non-business partners, there are ways to enforce it, but it's not like you can go to every random person who works in your site and go, "You've got to sign a non-compete clause." And if you sign this non-compete, you can't go work there anywhere. That's ridiculous. There has to be some limits to that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what states have been coming out and saying. So if you're a CEO, maybe you might be able to enforce a non-compete. And again, I'm not giving state-specific waivers, and we didn't do our normal "this is not legal advice" thing. This is a typical conversation we're having that is just informative in nature. The advice I give may not be right for you, but yeah, that's
Right.
one of the things you want to be thinking about, which is this type of non-compete even enforceable in your state? The next question: if you are a principal investigator, you want to make sure that someone out there is looking at whether laws like Stark, Anti-Kickback, False Claims Act are being considered. So one of the big things that happens is that there are physician bonuses, that you may have performance bonuses. And what physicians will say, like, if I bring in so many people, or if I refer so many people to you, what kind of money will you give me? And if you have a certain amount of, shall we say, referrals, or you take a certain amount of Medicare, and Medi-Cal, that may come back to bite you. So
Hmm.
sometimes sites and sponsors, etc., use standard language, and that may be okay in some cases, but in many cases, this may come back to bite you quite significantly, because there are tons and tons of enforcement around healthcare fraud right now. I think the latest one was they took in like 400 something people for 1 point something billion in fines. So over $1 billion in fines, over 400 people who are healthcare practitioners. So if you're a PI, if you're a sub-I, start thinking about these things.
So
If you are a
if
site
you're
owner,
telling me
rather,
if you're
yeah,
a PI or a sub-I just working for a small clinic or medium size, I don't think the size of the clinic matters, but
no,
you're not the owner of the clinic, right?
yes,
And
correct.
the site is paying you a bonus every time someone
Mm-hmm.
randomizes, or
Mm-hmm.
some other kind of incentive, like let's say a pre-screening incentive. You're telling
Mm-hmm.
me that they can actually get in trouble by Medicare, or who?
So let's say you're a physician, right? And you've got a situation where you set up a contract where every time you find a potential subject, you send them to ABC clinical labs, and ABC clinical labs will do a certain number of screening tests just to evaluate if this patient's right for your study. And then the clinical labs will send you maybe a little bit of a kickback, saying thank you for sending so many people to me. Here's a nice little thank you bonus. And the sponsor may send you a little bit of a kickback, saying thank you for using our product and thank you for enrolling so many people. The site may end up sending you some extra money saying that thank you for doing all the amazing work and for all the amount of subjects that you're bringing into these studies, and here's a nice little bonus. Some of those arrangements may not be okay because those arrangements may trigger certain types of stark, anti-kickback, and False Claims Act violations.
Interesting. Okay.
Something to
Okay.
think about.
And who checks on that? Like, who? I mean, is that the IRS? Because who's going to be able to see when a research
The
site pays a physician? It's not in the Sunshine Act. Part of the Sunshine Act is
Yep.
whoever the PI is, whatever the gross amount that the site made goes to the PI.
But
Even
now
though
if
that's
it's
much
Medicare,
less.
Medicaid, what you might have is a situation where Medicare, Medicaid may be paying a central lab, and they may find out like, why are these people suddenly billing so much to me? And they start seeing a pattern. They see that every time this physician's involved, there's more billing. And then OIG, Office of Inspector General, Department of Justice, they start getting involved. They might be looking over your shoulder. And again, they might pull in data. And there's now a huge department for healthcare fraud in the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Whether it's and different states are now opening up more because there's so much focus on it. When you're talking about
So,
billions of dollars of money coming in, it's worth
so
it.
most of it is centered around Medicare, right?
Medicare and Medicaid, but usually the way it works out, and again, not always, but the federal government gets involved. They have the deeper pockets, and once the deeper pockets are handled, the states will jump in and say, "Well, what about my piece?" And then they'll do their own analysis, and they'll find more money, more fines, and more penalties.
Okay. So that's
Yep,
the non-compete for the employees, and then you have the PI or sub-I kickbacks. All right. What else? That's two.
maybe
Are those
that's
the
two.
number one and two? Okay.
That's well, technically, I'd say that's 5 and 4.
Oh, five
How
and
about
okay, we're going backwards.
they're going backwards? How about number 3, which is if you're the employee and you work for Dan, does Dan own your social media account? Does he own your Twitter account? Does he own your LinkedIn account? Does he own your Facebook? Does he get the right to look at them? Do you have to give him passwords? What if
Yes, I
Dan
do.
actually pays you?
I own
Well,
all your
you
friends.
might not. You own all his friends. Well, actually, you'd be surprised. There have been court cases on exactly this, and the courts haven't completely decided yet what happens because
Really?
it may be simple. Yeah, simple things like let's say I come in and I'm working with you as your employee. You go, Darshan, you know what? You're now my employee. I own at FDA Lawyers. Well, do you though? Because I've been managing FDA Lawyers for the last so many years, and I'm on Twitter as FDA Lawyers just for everyone else. But if you find me on that, maybe you pay me a certain bonus for that. Maybe that's one discussion. But to say that you own that directly, that may or may not be okay. On the other hand, let's say it's a brand new account and you hire me to develop that and to get you 5,000 followers. And I get you 5,000 followers. Now this is how you use this account for recruiting. Is it okay for me to just walk away with your followers because I left your job or because I didn't?
Mm, okay. Yeah. So if I hire someone to do social media for my clinic and I say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
your job is to manage this page. We're going to run ads. We're going to run regular posts, organic and paid traffic. And,
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's my platform,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to manage it. So now if that employee leaves, you're telling me they may have the right to claim that as their account?
Because they might say, I've been doing it from the inception of the account. I've been marketing. Those are my friends you're talking to.
Mhm.
And so if you don't specify in your employment contract who owns these accounts, that may come back to bite either the employer or the employee.
Sure.
So it's something you need to be thinking about. Here's number 2, which is if you're the employee, start thinking about what is it that you're doing. Is this maybe your part-time gig while you try to get something together, or is this your full-time job? You might want to start thinking about carving out your own intellectual property. So in any kind of clinical study, there's this whole discussion about who owns the IP. And the site and the sponsor are always negotiating. Site and the CRO are always negotiating. Well, what about the PI and the site? What about a contractor, a coordinator, and a site? Who decides what part of the stuff that's there belongs to the PI? And there's something called shop rights, which is certain if you use the facility's resources to develop something. Let's say they're using this expensive AutoCAD program they have, and they've come up with this brand new way of designing something, and they're using all of your facilities. Well, as the employer, you might say, I have a right to it, and those are called shop rights. But what if you're the employee and you're doing this on your own personal time, on Saturdays and on weekends and in the evenings? Does the sponsor have the right, or does the site, or does your employer basically have the right to say that's mine too?
Yeah. Or a more common one would be you hire a coordinator, let's say a brand new research clinic, and it's a startup, so they're given everything to do, right? Not just one thing. It's they're given everything. And one of the things they do is, because they're an experienced coordinator and they work for a PI that doesn't really know much about research. And so it's their idea to create SOPs for the site because they know that the site needs SOPs, right?
Yep.
So they create the SOPs. It's for the site, but let's say they leave the site. I mean, technically, you can argue that's their SOP, right?
Yep. They might absolutely argue that it's their SOPs, which obviously will come back to bite the site. On the other hand, what if it's a set of SOPs that let's say their business style is they do set up a clinic, and then move on because they're simply not needed. They're sort of the startup expert. And they create these SOPs, leave them with the site. Can they go ahead and use those SOPs at the next site, or are they not allowed to?
I would say they can.
Some would say they can, some would say they can't.
And that's the beauty of law, right? There is no right or wrong answer.
There is what you decided. And then there are ethics, and then there are guidelines, and there are recommendations, but there is no right. It's all situation dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And then number one, the most important thing, and this is the one I teach when I teach at the University of Sciences, which is most people are afraid when I become an employee, when I advise employees, most employees kind of go, oh, this is just a bunch of paperwork that I have to sign. And then they notice things in there that they don't like, and they try to go, can you explain this to me, or I'm not okay with this, or blah, 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 blah. And they get told that, look, sign this or don't sign this, but those are your only real two options. Here's the thing. The agreements that are basically you've got to take it or leave it are typically known as contracts of adhesion. And adhesion contracts are very difficult to enforce because of the fact that a contract is supposed to be two parties agreeing to something. If one party has no power to negotiate at all, that can come back to bite the other party, because then courts often take the view that we think that the other party didn't have much negotiation room, so everything should be interpreted in favor of the party that didn't have any right to negotiate, because they didn't have any right to clarify. So feel free to negotiate, and if they don't negotiate, get that in writing.
Feel free. If they don't negotiate, feel free to sue. Right?
Well, you can't really. How far would you get with suing? But what you might be able to do as an employee is take the position that I tried to negotiate. You said no. Now we have a problem. When we have a problem, here's how I read this line. Here's how you read this line. Court, I didn't have a chance to clarify. They said take it or leave it. It's a contract of adhesion, and therefore you should interpret this in favor of me.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to that. I'm a business owner, entrepreneur, so I very rarely do I take on projects where I work for other people, but I have done it in the past. I was contract CRA. I actually still am. I'm
Mhm.
very part time. But one
Mhm.
of the contracts I had, um, I had to, and they did let me negotiate it, but I had to read it carefully because
Yep.
one of the clauses said you will receive payment when CRO receives payment from sponsor. And I was like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, that doesn't sound fair because
Right.
what if that sponsor goes bankrupt? A lot of
Right.
biotechs do. We're in a biotech bubble. And then the
Yep.
CRO says, well, we don't have to pay you because we never got paid. So there's always, like, just read those contracts, whether you're an employee or an independent contractor. But I want to make this practical, Darshan, for the
Yeah.
viewers
Of
out
course.
there.
Yep.
So, a lot of people are just happy to get their first opportunity or
Yep.
an opportunity, right?
Yep.
Like, they're not, most people are not going to want to play hardball when it comes to their contract. And
Mhm.
so, while number one is the most important, you have the right to negotiate your contract. Most people think that they shouldn't do that because then someone else will get the job.
Sure. And that may absolutely be correct. And a site, just because you say that I want to negotiate this, doesn't mean the site is required to negotiate that with you. But
Mm.
what you need to have is an openness to understand what the other side is saying, and then saying, I understand what you're saying. Here's where we come from. Here's what's important. Here's if I'm willing to negotiate. Here's where I'm willing to negotiate with, but I'm not willing to change where I stand. So that openness to have a conversation, then it becomes less of a contract of adhesion, right? Because then you're saying that I'm willing to negotiate, but if you're going to tell me that you want to get paid $30,000 more than what I was willing to pay, well, that's not something that I'm willing to pay, and that doesn't make my contract a contract of adhesion. That just means you're being unreasonable, or we just don't have a meeting of the mind, and that may be okay.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So those are our top five.
Top five. Number two will be interesting. Number three, this will be a good clickbait for the title. I actually
There
like
you
the
go.
social media one. That's to me the most interesting. But all of these are fantastic for both sides of the table, whether you're an employee or the business owner.
Oh, I have another one that's going to be for employers soon.
Oh, another topic.
Yeah, how to negotiate if you're the employer with an employee.
Mm. And
So
how
stay
to
tuned.
steal your employees' social media contacts.
No, no, this is never about stealing. It should be about
It's
two
not.
parties getting together and understanding.
The way you do it is you ask very nicely, and then it's not stealing.
You've done this a few times, haven't you?
Yes, I have actually. What? So one time we had a medical assistant here, and she was
Uh huh.
very popular on Snapchat. For if you would see her Snapchats for very obvious reasons, let's just put it that way.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
she suggested, she's like, "Hey, I have like 3,000 followers. Most of them live here. We had a pain study, and then we had a depression study." And she did a little quick snap, 10 seconds, right? Sent it to all her followers. I kid you not, within 20 minutes, we had 5 phone calls at the clinic because she put her number,
Wow.
office number, and we had
Wow.
pre-screenings. I think one of them actually came in to screen for the study. So it was real,
Wow.
like, tangible results. And it worked
That's
with her because
impressive.
she was extremely popular, but yeah, it definitely planted a seed. So now I try to look at employees. We don't hire based off of your social profile, but we encourage them to network with their social media profiles if they feel comfortable doing so and when it's appropriate.
There you go.
Yep.
And I'm sure you guys have a social media policy that helps people, guides
Well,
people.
the policy is it's theirs. It's not we don't we're just asking them to do a free quick, whatever it is that we're asking.
But can
So
they? I assume that they can't talk about confidential information. I'm assuming that they can talk about um, sort of office gossip
oh, sure,
on
of
a
course.
public format.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That's for
I'm
sure.
sure you guys have policies that talk about those things that tell them what they can and cannot do.
Yep, can't talk about the sponsor, publicly.
Exactly.
This will especially be true for the CRO work that we start getting soon. So
Yeah.
yeah, can't live stream a webinar hosted by the study sponsor. Like,
Yep. Can't talk about work because it might
no,
turn out that they have incomplete information.
you're right. Only I
Or
can do those kind of foolish things. Uh, and
and
I'm
then
very
call me
curious.
and tell me
Yeah, then
how
we'll
you're
call
usually very
Darshan
good.
to bail me out. Pretty much,
Very
that's
good.
how it works. So thank you, Darshan. We'll do another one. Where can people reach you? Conformlaw.com, right?
You can always reach me at kulkarnilawfirm.com. Kulkarni Law Firm redirects Conform Law as well. So if you do
Okay.
conformlaw.com, you will come to kulkarnilawfirm.com. You can always reach me on Twitter at FDA Lawyers. You can just email me at Darshan, Darshan, as in Nancy, at conformlaw.com or at kulkarnilawfirm.com. Or you can just call my office at 215-948-8183. That's 215-948-8183.
Give him a call. You won't regret it. He'll help you out, whether you're a site, CRO, pharma, whatever. He'll help you out. So thank you, Darshan. We'll do it again. I appreciate this topic.
But this was awesome. Thank you.
And thank you, Guru Nation, for watching. We will talk soon.